Okay, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a virtual machine under VMware ESXi 5.0 update 1. So first, we got to get the ISO file into the local file system of the VMware server. So the gist of what we're doing here is taking Windows Server 2012 release candidate download from Microsoft's website and getting that ISO file into a local file system, which I then use Veeam for a rapid file transfer, free download, Veeam Fast SCP. Go to the local file system, right-click this ISO file name, and copy to the clipboard. And then go to the remote file system on the ESXi host, and pop that file into an appropriate directory, which I put here, my ISO directory. That'll take a few minutes to transfer. It'll take a lot less time, about 1/6 the time, as it would using the file manager built into ESXi found with Browse Data Store here. So much slower if you try to upload from here. But if you don't want to use Veeam, you can also do it this way. Okay, now that you have the file ready, we're ready to create a new virtual machine. So I'm going to right-click on the host. In my case, I have some groups. Say New Virtual Machine. And here's the key. We can use typical, but we have to be careful on a couple of steps. So use typical. All right. Now, I'm kind of a fan of good documentation on what I'm doing. And these names get real confusing. This is the one I want from June 1st. And this is the name of the product. So let me come up with a decent name here. Let's try that again. I'm having trouble with my clipboard here. I'm not sure why. Come on. Okay, now let's try from Veeam. Get that file name on the clipboard again. Control C. You know what? That's enough. So you can only go so long, and that captures which ISO I used, really. So that's not a bad name without these words here. And at the end, I like to put the word template, because this is going to be my master build. So when I horse around later, I'll just deploy from this template. Next. SSD accelerated RAID array is where I'm putting it. Notice I'm leaving this alone. Even though there's a Windows Server 8, it doesn't work. You want to pick 2008 R2, the default. So leave it alone. Stick with this adapter. We can play with VMXNet 3 later after installing tools if we want. I'm doing thin provisioning in 750. That's just sort of my trigger to remind myself, I don't really have 750 gig. It's all thin provisioned. It only takes up as much storage as is actually needed on the RAID array. Okay. Now, we can go ahead and edit settings before we complete. And a couple of key things we got to do. We've got to point to the ISO file, connect it at power on. Okay, that one. Notice my name has the beginning of the ISO file name in there. Perhaps release candidate 120518 would have been better. That's all right. I'll only be playing with it for a month anyway. Okay, so now we're pointing to the ISO file. We have 4 gig of RAM, 1 CPU. Oh, that should be fine. Just to kick the tires, trying to keep this install as simple as possible. If we do want to, yeah, I'm going to leave that alone. All right, so that's done. Now, Let's take a look. What did we just create? Here's the template. So we're ready to open a console to that. And we're ready to get started with the actual install. So I'm powering up the virtual machine. And showing you the key parts of the screen on a 720p resolution here, which is more than adequate for most of the install here. Okay, the mouse is going to look a little funny until we get tools installed. Click Next. Click Install Now. And read carefully. I want the GUI in my case. Click Next. Accept the license terms. Notice the names, pre-release is in there. And there we go. Custom is the only thing that makes sense. There is no hard drive storage. 750 gig virtual drive we just carved up. And again, it's only taking as much space as needed on the file system. So now the install is underway. I'm going to hit Control Alt to get my mouse out of that window. Mouse. So again, Control Alt gets me to release the mouse from being a hostage there. Okay, so the install is cruising along. While that's going, we can do this. Let's go ahead and browse the file system and just show you what's going on under the cover a little bit. Okay, let's notice a couple things here. If we sort alphabetically and go to the bottom, we'll see capital Windows Server 2012. Windows Server 2012 release candidate right here. Looks like it truncated the name on the file system as it made a folder. Not sure why. It's okay. It's just a beta. Again, I'm only playing for it for like a month. Here's the files it's laying down. The timestamp is accurate. That is the time. And they're going to be growing, those files. So if we hit refresh, we should see the 6 gig has probably grown a little bit. 7, yep. So that's what happens naturally as it's laying down files. And now it's at 8 gig. And now it's simply rebooting. So the 8 gig should stay fairly static at this point. And it is. All right, let's just watch it reboot now. So that went rather fast. We'll have status here momentarily. So what happens is you get hung up at this point with that little swirly thing. If you chose Windows 8, you won't get very far. Whether you do it during the install or after install, choosing Windows 8 at any time doesn't go so well with Windows Server 2012 release candidate anyway. So with each of the different betas that's been out since fall of 2011, things have changed with each install. There's been different tweaks kind of needed for each. Not difficult tweaks, just I don't know. We'll see. Maybe when ESXi 5.1 comes out and the GA product of Windows Server 2012 comes out, the two will probably work just fine right out of the box. No patching or tweaking or anything needed. Okay, another reboot. Hit refresh, still around 8 gig. Okay, click my mouse so I can type a password. I can hit enter, or I can reach the mouse and click finish, which makes for better screenshots. Another nice thing about this particular release is installing VMware Tools is easy. Both Windows 8 and Windows Server 2012 release candidates that came out May 31st, 2012. VMware Tools installs just fine. Okay, click with the mouse to give that window focus. I hit Control Insert to send Control Delete to the virtual machine. Type in the password, and I'm getting in for the first time. So it's a pretty quick install and configure. And it looks like it wants a little higher resolution than what I'm able to show in the 720p video. I can tweak that in a minute here. All right. Now, time zone is one of those things it doesn't get right. So it's letting you fix your clock after the install. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right away before I forget. Okay, my clock is right. And I'm done with that. I just want to see the desktop at this point. Next, I'm going to go ahead and install VMware Tools. Okay, 720p resolution is not available. That's kind of interesting. Okay, I'll just live with a little bit of video cut off for now until I get Tools installed. So, Tools, how do we do it? The usual way, right up here. Guest, install VMware Tools. And there it comes. So we get a little window here that says what do you want to do. Click on it. I get options. I want to run setup 64. Now you know how autoplay equivalent kind of works in 2012. Typical is fine. We now have the VMXNet 3 driver, which I could cut over to by tweaking the virtual machine settings. Again, just a beta, I'm not going to play with all that much, but for the final release, I'll definitely take the time to do that. Okay, Tools is installed, let it reboot. So we just killed another minute or two, so we're still under 10 minutes total, I believe, from beginning to end of getting this thing running, so that's not bad. Okay, Control Delete. Sorry, Control Insert. Very responsive. And let's minimize that. And I like to show the Tools icon at all times. So show icon and notifications, click, actually I can just have it show everything that's running. There we go. I can see VMware Tools is running and that we're good to go. What else do I do, sort of best practices? Well, I turn on TimeSync here and I turn it off here. So my ESXi host does the time syncing. Let my VMs under it sync their clock to that using tools, rather than relying on NTP and networking. That way I get an accurate clock even if I'm fiddling with my network. Okay, what else? Well, what about old stuff like, I don't know, NetPLWiz or comp management, computer management. Let's try it. So we click here, move our mouse to the right, and what do you know, we get charms. Okay, so that stuff works. Let's also look at screen resolution now that we have more options. Okay. So it looks like we still have the crummy device driver. This was true earlier, so here's the workaround. Bring up browser, or bring up computer management, however you like to do that. Go to local server. How about I just hit the Windows key and start typing device manager? Nothing. Okay, how about settings? There, now device manager comes up. All right, so I got device manager going. Now if we have a look at our display adapters, it did not get the VMware driver for video. So let's fix that right now. Update and automatic is probably going to fail. So what we want to do here is update, manually browse, and let's point to where VMware Tools is installed. I think I messed that up. Hang on. There we go. Click OK. It's going to search subfolders. And now we're ready. Still nothing. This thing's fighting me. Let's try again. Let me pick. Turn off show compatible. Say have disk. And now let's browse to that folder. And we're out of luck. So it looks like we're stuck with a crummy video driver. Paste that path right in here. Let's have a look around. Okay, so it looks like we're not going to get a special video driver. That's okay. This is a server that wasn't really my focus. But I had gotten that work in the past. But the previous beta gave me issues with video as well. So let's give up on video and let's move over to another nicety here. When you're in a lab and you just want to reboot and see your desktop and don't necessarily want to log in, I hit the Windows key and just start typing netplwiz.exe. Hit enter. And I can turn that off. Whoops. Caps lock somehow went on. And something to be aware of in VMs that you can get caps lock reversal if you don't pay attention. Okay, I got a password in. Now the machine will just, when I reboot, it'll auto log in. Another thing I do is okay, so much for screensaver. How about edit power plan and go to never blank the screen. I want my VM to always show. It doesn't make sense. There's no physical monitor attached. And that's it. If we look at settings, the machine is never going to go to sleep. So you can leave that alone. But so turn off the display never is set. And those are the basics. Video resolution we already talked about. It's a little weird, but it'll do. And it doesn't matter because we can go ahead and do remote desktop. So if we go back to the server management, let's see how it looks. Remote management is enabled, remote desktop's disabled. So that's the next very basic thing I always do when setting up a machine. I want to be able to get in. I didn't really need to click apply, I could have just clicked OK. So now I'm able to get in with terminal services. The last nice thing is if I actually want sound with terminal services, hit start, type CMD, hit enter, I'm still at an administrative command prompt. It's that easy. But here's the command to get sound support. I don't have clipboard yet because I'm not in over remote desktop. I'm going to say no to reboot and Windows Audio. Let's turn that to automatic and let's start it now. Okay, boy, search doesn't work too well, but there's sound. No audio device is installed yet until I reboot. Okay, so I'd say I want to reboot. I bring the mouse to the right, I hit settings, hit power, hit restart. Okay, it looks like Windows Update was doing some updates in the background there. I probably would want to turn that off, given this is just a lab where I want to quickly try out the virtual machine and kick the tires. Gets a little annoying if you have Windows Update stuff going. So let me go ahead and remember to tweak that upon this next reboot. If we want antivirus, Forefront 2009 version from MSDN might work. There's lots of antivirus products for server. They just tend to be expensive. Okay, so when this boots, I'm going to see if it auto logs in first of all, so it should not prompt me for password anymore. And we'll check the Windows Update settings. Nice. I didn't type, I just started typing. Okay, that search in Metro doesn't do too much, but everything seems to be under settings. Windows Update. It's not configured to get updates. Okay, so that's fine. Hit the Windows key to get back to it there. Hit desktop to get back to desktop. And let's take a look at what this warning is. It's a little odd, but looks like those services are on delayed start. They may have just not started yet. All right, so we're done with creating a base template here. Actually, probably any administrator wants to turn on, let's see, view details, and then show ribbon, perhaps, if you're used to these boxes showing, or kind of a Windows view, if you like that. But more important, file name extensions, I want showing. I don't want them hidden. There we go. So we got my Explorer in better shape now as well. Colors. Let's see, under personalize. It's basic, all right. Did sounds come up? Yes, it did. Now we're not going to hear anything yet until I go over remote desktop. Because we don't, yeah, so let's try that next. So let's hit the start button. Okay, there's my IP to connect to. So now we connect MSTSC 10.10.1.105. Options. Display. Okay. Audio. Play in this computer. So we can leave that alone. And we got the experience cranked to the max for full visual effects. So now we click OK. Now we have a very pleasant experience kicking the tires on this virtual machine with extremely responsive user interface and with any luck some sound. Let's try sound again. Now if we want the Windows key to work in the remote VM, that can be a little trickier. We might want to use something like Royal Terminal Services, Royal TS, where the Windows key can be passed. Or if you use full screen, it's a lot easier, but it's hard to record in Camtasia. All right, so what do I want to do here? Let's bring up Charms. Does that work? Yep, Charms works. Control panel. All right, now if we search here, we should get sound. There we go. Not sure if I have Camtasia recording audio at the desktop. Let me try cranking that up. There you go. Hopefully the microphone picked that up. Okay, so we have sound in our VM. So hit start button. Doesn't work. It does a local machine because I'm not full screen. We talked about that. But if we get Charms going in the bottom right, we can click settings. We can do power. And we can shut down because now it's time to close the remote desktop window, bring up ESXi again, and make a template out of this. Okay, so the thing we just created has a really long name right here. It's powered off. So we right click it, and that's right, at the moment I don't have vCenter going, so I can't quite make a template and deploy from template. I've covered that in other videos, but basically it makes a read-only copy of this. And then when you're ready to kick the tires again or try it out, you right-click deploy from template, it copies it very quickly. You now boot that VM and horse around with it and delete it when you're done. So that's the gist of it. We now have Windows Server 2012 release candidate installed properly on ESXi. Very important. 5.0, update 1 or later. And it obviously worked. And a quick recap of the settings. All that was really special here is make sure you pick that operating system and you'll be fine. All the other defaults are fine. One other best practice thing is now that it's installed, we point to a local thing so we don't get errors. Actually, hang on, I usually turn off those checkboxes. And point somewhere and then click OK. And now it's no longer trying to mount any ISOs automatically at boot. Sorry, did I get that right? Turn that off. Click on that. I was on the wrong virtual machine. Okay, so now our template, when we boot it, is no longer hunting for an ISO. There you go. The setting stuck. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful.